Good morning. I would like to welcome everybody to our superintendent search finalist interviews today. And today is April 21st, 2021. Good morning, Dr. Border.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lori Cunningham, and I currently serve as chairman of the Polk County School Board. We welcome you to beautiful Polk County. We are so delighted to have the opportunity to get to know you and for you to learn a little bit more about us during this process. So I would like to begin this morning by introducing you to my esteemed colleagues on the school board. From District 1, we have Dr. William Allen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
District 2 is represented by myself.
Good morning.
From District 3, we have Miss Sarah Fortney.
Good morning.
From District 4, we have Miss Sarah Beth Reynolds.
Good morning.
Good morning.
From District 5, we have Miss Kay Fields.
Good morning.
Again, Dr. Borders.
From District 6, we have Mr. Lynn Wilson.
Good morning.
And from District 7, we have Mrs. Lisa Miller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And at this time, I would like to introduce our key staff who is in the room to you. Currently, we have Mr. Wes Bridges, who is our general counsel to the school board.
Good morning.
We have Miss Linda Baldick, who is our executive secretary
Good morning.
to the school board. And I believe you already know Miss Messina.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Good morning.
Awesome. Now I would like to review the interview process with you and the timeline. We will have approximately 2 hours for our board interviews this morning. You will have around 5 minutes to provide an opening statement here in just a minute. Then each board member is going to be asking you a series of thematically based questions such as student accountability, operations management, instructional leadership, and so on. Each board member will have around 15 minutes to ask around 4 to 5 questions. And of course, the number of questions will depend on the length of the responses. And I will signal you or let you know when we're getting close to the end of the 15 minutes, when you have 2 minutes left. Ms. Messina will alert me, and then I will let you know that. You will have time at the end of the interview for any final thoughts that you may have or any questions. And I just wanted to let you know that I, for one, and perhaps my colleagues, will be taking notes throughout the interview so that we can go back later and refer to them. Do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. Well, then I would like to start, Dr. Border, by allowing you around 5 minutes or so for any opening comments or thoughts that you would like to share with us, and you may begin.
Well, good morning, Chair Cunningham, board members Allen, Fortney, Reynolds, Fields, Wilson, and Miller. I'm really excited to be in Polk County Public Schools to talk to you about your Superintendent of Schools position today. I want to thank ASPA for the warm reception and breakfast this morning. I want to thank Polk Vision for the outstanding welcome bag at the hotel. That was a great treat. I want to thank your Citizens Search Committee and all your community members for all their work throughout this process. And I want to thank Tyler and Trenton and Alessandro and Allison and your junior superintendent, as well as your marketing department, because the branding for your superintendent search was phenomenal. And I also want to thank my family. My beautiful wife Janice is my anchor, and I can't wait for you to meet her tonight and tomorrow night at the community reception. She's an exceptional education teacher for over 2 decades now, and so she'll be coming over each evening from Orlando. And I want to thank our children. Our oldest is a second-year student at the United States Military Academy at West Point. Our middle one is a freshman, 15, at a high school student. And then we have a 6-year-old Mason. And so I just want them to know your mom and dad love you and are really proud of you. I thought my excitement for this position was already at the pinnacle. And then last night, walking around Lakeside Village was such a treat. Interacted with a lot of individuals, and I got to tell you, everyone who has an affiliation with Polk County Public Schools just had nothing but positive to say about the work here, and that's a testament to you as a board and also Superintendent Byrd and her staff, and so that was a real treat. I want you to know that demography does not mean destiny for our students. And the power of public education is real. And I'm a testament to that. I grew up in Orrstown, Pennsylvania, small town of less than 300. I lost my dad when I was 6 years old. But I had an incredible mom, and she instilled the importance of education in me at a young age. She grounded 3 principles in me: treat others the way you want to be treated, make sure every action you take is going to lead you to your goals, and work hard relentlessly in and outside of school. And I was blessed at Lurgan Elementary School, Chambersburg Area Middle School, Chambersburg Area Senior High School. It was teachers like Mrs. Belts, Mrs. Rotz, Mr. Kachera, Mr. Halleck, Coach McHenry, Senora Perone. They believed in me before I believed in myself, and you can't quantify that impact that an educator can have on a child when that occurs. They provided me access to high-quality instruction each and every day, and they held me accountable to not lower standards and not allow me to deviate. But still, as a senior in high school, January of 1991, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Quite honestly, I was frozen in the fear of continuing a life of poverty and going further into debt with college. So working at Kressler's Food Mart one night, the radio went silent in January of 91, and our president came on and said our great nation had declared war on Iraq. So that was the stepping stone for me to enter the delayed entry program. I enlisted in the United States Navy upon graduation from high school. That's how I got to beautiful Central Florida. I went to basic training through Orlando and just fell in love with Central Florida. I had electronics schooling there afterwards, and I loved my time in the military. It taught me the importance of integrity and character, problem solving, resolve, systems and strategic thinking. Upon the completion of my enlistment in Charleston, South Carolina, I began to work my way back to Central Florida. I started going to the University of Central Florida. My job at the time was at United Parcel Service. I worked Sunday night till Thursday morning, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Great company, took really good care of us. And ironically, worked my way up to captain of Workstation 7 through the years there. And we would send 12 trailers of packages every night, all around from Oregon to around the country, but 7 of them came right here to Polk County. 5 to Lakeland and 2 to Lake Wales. So entrenched in my memory are the zip codes: 33801 Lakeland, 33823 Auburndale, 33830 Bartow, 3380 Winter Haven. So, you know, those will be with me. So while I don't know my way around yet, I do know the zip codes, that's for sure. So at University of Central Florida, I got my bachelor's in elementary education, my master's and doctorate in educational leadership. My doctoral dissertation was so vital to me. It was on job satisfaction. And that really has been an essence and staple of my work. The importance of a staff that is working with psychological safety and able to do what they need to do for children, which is built upon respect, relationships, and collaboration. And that's been a tenet of my work through the years, which has been a great calling. I call it a calling instead of a job or career in Orange County Public Schools. I've loved my time in Orange County Public Schools, with gaining increasing responsibilities that I'm sure I'll be able to talk about throughout the interview, but most recently Chief of High Schools in May of 2016, where at the end of the day I am the superintendent for 58,000 students, 4,000 employees, and in charge of $250 million in budget. And not just the academics, the finances, the facilities, the operations. If there's anything with our 22 high schools, the buck does stop with me, and I love it. You know, as I sit here today, I feel like I already know you. I've been watching your board meetings since October, and gone back even before that. So it's really nice to meet people in person that you feel like you already know. And part of the excitement is through watching those, I just really feel like our passion aligns, and we are going to continue to assure, and take it even further that our students in Polk County Public Schools are able to graduate career and college ready. So thank you for having me today. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you so much, Dr. Border. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and begin the interview with a few general topic questions. So I would like to ask you, you sort of already did that, to introduce yourself, and if you would, Could you choose one word or one phrase that best describes you? And if so, what would it be and why?
So, a little bit more about me, I'll start with that, is, I started out as a middle school teacher. I loved being a science teacher and getting to do inquiry-based work with my kids. I was a dean at a middle school. I was an assistant principal at middle and high school. The last job I applied for was actually a middle school principal job, and worked with a great team. We were the first middle school in our county to attain what was called adequate yearly progress back then, which meant our teachers were doing a great job with our subgroups. From there, I was tapped. I was called by the district office and said, tomorrow, you'll be going to Freedom High School, which at the time was a double D state intervened school. But I was blessed with an amazing team and really learned that when you set expectations, people rise to the expectations, and the staff did an amazing work. We were able to move that school within a couple points of an A the first year. And I talked a little bit about my dissertation, but I take great pride in sustaining leadership and longitudinal results, which I've been able to do working alongside great teams throughout my career. And that high school remains a beacon for our district, a decade more since I've been there. From there, I was tapped to go to the school district office. We started a school transformation office and worked with some of our schools needing the greatest support. Alongside a great team at Lovell Elementary School and Rock Lake Elementary School that year, we were able to attain outstanding work for kids. From there, I was tapped to become a geographic area superintendent, where I had 36 plus schools in the southwest region of the county. Towards the end of that year, our superintendent made the decision to bring all of the high schools together. So it fell under our chief academic officer, who's now the superintendent in Volusia County, for a couple months, and then I took that over at the end of the year. So for the past 5 years, I've served as the chief of high schools, which is great. I get to work with all 8 school board members across all of our jurisdictions, and so that's been a fantastic experience. But if I had to say one phrase just about my general personality, I think that people would tell you I'm genuine and authentic, and I truly care about our kids, and I care about them.
Thank you, Dr. Border. Next, if you would be so kind and give us a glimpse into your transition style. Please share how you will get to know our district, learn about our incredible staff, about our awesome programs, evaluating financials, and integrate into the community, and so on. Anything else you would like to add?
Well, that will be vital, and I want to be clear, this is Polk County Citizens School District, and I will be coming here to acclimate to Polk County, and I firmly believe I will be able to do that successfully. I have no doubt about that, but I want to be clear, it is our citizens' school district and our citizens' schools, and I will be here to serve. And so I certainly will be working with Superintendent Byrd and the executive team to get to know them, get to know their successes, where they feel like they're working on some matters for improvement, and what they need to do that. As far as financials, I want to make sure we do cross-functional analysis of all departments to make sure that's aligned to the strategic plan. We can only spend each dollar once, and our budget really is our numerical vision for our district. And so it's important that all departments, operations, everything in operations, transportation, food service, procurement, in facilities, that everything is aligned to our strategic plan. And I'm sure there might be a question on that later, but to just give you an example, in Orange County in facilities, we do bulk purchasing versus purchasing from the contractors. And that's something that really just occurred recently. But over the last 10 years, that's saved us $27 million, which is enough to build an elementary school. And so every dollar counts, and as much as we can move funds back to the classroom, that's what I want to do. In our one-on-ones, I look forward to sharing with you a 180-day entry plan, which, to be clear, I'll be working with you on that entry plan, so it's a draft. But in there, empowerment is the first piece. And empowerment means building strength and confidence in all of our stakeholders to be able to help our kids. And so that's, of course, our amazing staff, but also our parents and families. And I want to have town hall meetings in every jurisdiction. I want to be at chambers of commerces. In my first 180 days, my plan is to visit every school and every work location where I want to ask why you love Polk County Public Schools, what would you like to improve, and what do you need to do that? And so I would be looking forward to that 180 days to get immersed in the community and get to know everyone and serve.
Thank you, Dr. Border. What is your experience advocating for or against legislative issues that impact school districts?
So it's vital that we have a legislative platform. It is crucial. You know, we're talking about finances, which I'm sure we'll get more specifics later, but, you know, they're discussing the millage, they're discussing impact fees right now in Tallahassee, and there's some pending legislation that could impact us. And millage rates, we know what occurred with House Bill 641 many years ago that we're still trying to work through as school districts. So we must have a legislative platform that ties to our strategic plan, and it's going to change regularly and be driven by this school board. And of course, we'll be working alongside you to do that. Right now in my role, I review bills from our individuals who represent us in Tallahassee, provide feedback on the impact, especially down to the classroom level. What does that really mean? And you know, and I think that we've had some success through the years as a state, all of school districts, having some movement in legislation. Not all that we would like, but we have to have that footprint, and we have to make sure our voice and agency is there. If it's given to us, great, but if it's not, for all of our 106,000 students and all of our staff members, we have to present our voice and agency and make sure that our elected officials in Tallahassee know what we need to help our students.
Thank you. Dr. Border, we have several quality finalists for this position. Can you tell me why we should select you?
All right, so listen, you have great candidates. You've had 52 applicants. They're all qualified for sure. I know some of them personally, and I wish all of them the best. But certainly I want to be your superintendent of schools. And I think that if there's a market differentiator for me, it's going to be that for 24 years in one school system, I have worked my way to be tapped for increasing roles and responsibilities. Not that I asked for them. The principal job to me was the greatest in the world. I love being a science teacher, but I love the principal job. And I tell my principals that all the time. But in each position, we were able to sustain results longitudinally. I stayed there for many years in each position, and when I left, the results have been sustained. And that building capacity, I think, is crucial in school districts because so often we will see some short successes, but then things dissipate. And I think part of that ties back to the root cause is we didn't build systems and capacity to sustain it. But with that said, I will bring the national flavor with me as well. Through my collaborations with the Yale School of Management, through the Council of Great City Schools, being an adjunct professor at the University of Central Florida for over a decade now, I am continually in conversations with leaders across the nation on what they are doing in their systems, and so I'm exposed to that. One of my colleagues just contacted me last night from California about reopening. As you know, they don't have students back face-to-face, but they're going to start phasing it in, and she was wanting to collaborate with me on our plans, because as you know, we've been back since the onset and done very well. And so I was reassuring her and sharing some strategies and materials for her to get started. And so I think that's the market differentiator, sustained results over time. I can look every employee in our organization eye to eye and know what they do every day, how important what they do is every day, and be able to support them and help them with what they need so that we all can keep the great work going for our kids, but even take it to the next level. And that's coupled with knowing nationally what's going on.
Thank you very much. Next, we will have Mrs. Fields asking questions related to board and community relations. Mrs. Fields?
Thank you. Dr. Border, when a new superintendent is hired, the goal is to make the transition as smoothly as possible for everyone. How would you help both the educational community and the community at large adjust to the new governing style that would come with the new superintendent?
Thanks, Ms. Fields, for that question. It is vital, and I come back to something I mentioned earlier. This is our community, school district and schools and our staff and faculty, and I'm here to acclimate to everybody here. And so when it comes to that, I'm coming here to listen and learn and work alongside the staff that's here. The second part of my 180-day plan is enrichment, which essentially means once I hear from everybody what they need and what they want to work on, then that's when we would start looking at that. But when we do that, that would be in consultation with our stakeholders, our industry and business leaders, our PTAs, our school advisory councils. Our union has to be at the table for all of those decisions. So to me, it will be seamless, and that is vital. And I will be working with the executive team that is already here and Superintendent Byrd to make sure that, again, I'm acclimating to the systems and processes in Polk County Public Schools, which I'm agile and ready to do.
Thank you. Good answer. In your role as superintendent, how would you ensure all stakeholder groups are fully engaged with schools? Why is diversity important to you, and how do you ensure it?
Diversity is vital, and we must embrace it. It's a strength, and we have to celebrate it. I work in a school district where our students come from 167 different countries, speak 159 different languages. 69% of our students are economically underserved. 40% of our students remain in ELL programs. And so we must embrace diversity. Exceptional student education is about 20% of our population in Orange, as well in Polk County. And so embracing diversity starts with having inclusive schools. And that inclusive schools comes back to the culture. And of course, the culture is set by our vision and purpose, and I know our mission in Polk County Public Schools is we want our students exposed to high quality instruction, always. And I know our motto is students first. And so I don't think that there would be any stakeholder that wouldn't agree with students first and that we want every student to have high quality instruction. So when we have common purpose, then we're ready to get started. And I would want, as your superintendent, to, again, visit every school, meet with every stakeholder, ask those 3 questions I mentioned. I want to be in every jurisdiction having a town hall meeting with the stakeholders. I want to, as a superintendent, if not already in place, because it may be, but I would love to form a council of all my school advisory council chairs and PTA presidents to have a meeting with them on a regular basis just to see what they need. And what I found through that, I did that in the high schools pre-COVID with the PTA presidents. They were able to see the great strategies that were happening in each high school and then replicate them because, they're looking for ideas to help our schools. So they were really able to have that in place. But it would be immersing myself in the community across the entire county and driving across Rhode Island, so to speak, and being in the communities and getting to know everyone.
Thank you. It is a big county. Describe what you believe to be the ideal working relationship with the school board. And when you have an adversarial situation with a school board member, how would you resolve it? So
the first part is we are a team, and when you make decisions and we work together to make decisions, we're unified in those decisions, and we set the tone for the district. And so it is important for us to be aligned. Again, I come back to our vision and mission. I would want to know from you how the strategic plan is working for you. I know it was 2016 and a 5-year strategic plan, so I would want to know how that's working for you. And when the time comes for us to revisit or continue the strategic plan, I think that is vital, because that sets us on the path for having common vision and purpose, which I think then will minimize the opportunities for courageous conversations. However, I want to be clear. I believe conflict is the step towards progress. And conflict has negative connotations, so I hesitate to even use it, but I don't look at it that way. I look at it as you represent the constituents of your districts, and you have to represent what they need. And while I'm hoping I'm in touch with that, if there's misalignment, I'm going to want to hear from you and what we need to be doing, and have those conversations and look forward to it, and respect your role. And when we leave those conversations, again, be unified with what we're going to be doing for kids. And so I embrace conflict, disagreements, whatever it is. I'm not looking for them, but for me, that provides the impetus to make progress and provide solutions.
So what if you have a board member that you just can't see eye to eye? I mean, your idea of progress is completely opposite theirs. What if you have a board member that might be wanting you to do something that might not be in the best interest, and not to say that that would happen here of our students? How would you deal with that?
I'm glad you asked that question, Ms. Fields. You know, I wrote in one of my responses, pressure's a privilege, and I believe that. You know, as your superintendent and you as school board members, we have to make difficult decisions, which is why it's even more vital for us to be aligned and have those conversations that we need to have to be unified. But when that occurs, the way I make a decision at the end of the day is, what would I want for my own children? And that's how I look at the 58,000 students in my high schools right now and the 106,000 students in Polk County Public Schools. Is that the same decision I would want for my own children? And if it's not, you know, I've always been able to build good relationships, but if we weren't able to come to common purpose, at the end of the day, I'm going to make the decision for what's best for children. And if me and the board member just couldn't come to consensus on that, then unfortunately, I think we would on the next one. That would be my hope. I would be wanting to turn the page and move forward. But we would have to agree to disagree.
Thank you. And my last question: how would you build an open, trusting relationship with your school board as an entity and each member individually?
So visibility, availability, accessibility, keeping you informed all the time. Communication is going to be key. You're going to get a board update from me every day. If it's your specific school, let's say someone's injured, let's say there's a safety emergency, let's say there is a law enforcement matter, anything that could garner media attention, you're going to hear from me and or my executive team almost as soon as it happens, so that you're informed. And then the board would get an update every day on everything happening across the district. So communication is key. And that's outside of the preparation for work sessions and board meetings and our one-on-one meetings. Part of my entry plan is I want to meet with all board members bi-weekly. I think it's vital, especially from the start, that we have as much face-to-face time as possible. And of course, you know, I'm available to you 24/7 as well. And so, thank you, Ms. Fields.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mrs. Fields. Next, we will have Dr. Allen asking questions related to student accountability.
All right, let's keep this conversation going. As it relates to student accountability, Dr. Border, based on what you know about our school system, what do you view as the greatest potential for improvement? And then, you know, what are the greatest opportunities that you see?
Thanks, Dr. Allen. I love to start with the successes, and I will tell you that I love what your high schools have done with graduation rate. The last couple of years, you're starting to narrow the opportunity gaps in our subgroups when it comes to graduation rate. I look forward to learning more pre-COVID what happened in 6th grade, because your sixth grade ELA and math scores pre-COVID looks like there was some tremendous work done there. And so I'd like to learn more about that. Your industry certifications, I know you had 1,400 last year. You're second in the nation with 29 credentialed career academies, which is incredible. I'm hoping there'll be a CTE question later, or if not, I'll cover it in my closing statement. And so there's so many good things happening in Polk County Public Schools. And I want to be clear on this too. Data is one piece of what I like to call triangulating data. The most important part of that triangle is what I call on the ground, being visible. And so as your superintendent, I need to be in schools. I need my executive team to be in schools, because the data might be pointing us in the wrong direction. And we have to match that with what we see in the school culture, the school climate, in the classrooms, so that we can support our staff with what they need. And so if I'm looking at your data, again, generalizing from the outside without knowing, I just commend you for what you're doing for students. I think when you compare our data, and that's what it would be for me as soon as I become your superintendent, our, we, us, ownership and accountability. But when I look from the West Coast to the East Coast of Central Florida, I think that we can make some gains. And for our kids. And for me, at the end of the day, I'm going to hold myself accountable for every student graduating career and college ready. I'm going to hold myself accountable for students reading at proficiency level. And, you know, this is going to come down to what our teachers need as well. What resources do they need? Because I know they are all working harder than ever, trying to teach blended classrooms. I can't even imagine. And so I think there's opportunity for conversations in my first 180 days of what do you need? Because they came into this profession, this is their calling. They came in to make a difference for kids, and I know they all want the same thing. And at the same time, on accountability, there may be a follow-up question, but you know, kids are more than numbers. And so we have so much to celebrate with our students in performing arts, our athletics, our kids that are getting industry certification, our kids that are going into the military, our kids that are graduating right now to pursue our field of education. And so there's so much from a public relationship and marketing standpoint that you do well, and that we would continue to do well, because it's about the whole child and not just if I'm being frank, a flawed accountability system. With that said, you know, we have to be good stewards of taxpayer money, and I do believe in accountability. We need the data to help us make decisions. But I think we can use it differently to get the results that we want to get.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's a nice progression into this next question. You know, how have you held staff members accountable for student achievement while balancing the demands of teachers in the classroom?
Well, first and foremost, Dr. Allen, it starts with me. I told you earlier I was appointed to a double D state intervened school, and that might bring an image to somebody when they hear it, but that's not the image on that campus. The students from day one were amazing, the community incredible, the teachers and staff incredible. And you know, what I said at the first staff meeting is this is our data, and I own this data. And I'm going to be here to support you with what we need to do to move forward. So accountability starts and it ends with every action every single day. At the end of the day, if all of our students don't graduate career and college ready, if they don't attend school in inclusive environments, if they're not reading by grade level, then I'm accountable. I'm accountable to you. I'm accountable to the public. And when it comes with accountability with staff, I come back to something I talked about earlier. I believe in a culture of psychological safety, which means when you have high psychological safety and accountability at the same time, that's where adult learning thrives. And that's how you get a growth mindset that becomes culturally embedded. It's not about evaluation. It's about support and coaching. And as your superintendent, build trust through being visible, through my actions, we will get to that route with me and the stakeholders. And then growth mindset becomes embedded. And when growth mindset becomes embedded, it's just about there is no such thing as an end. There is no such thing as perfection. It's just what can we do tomorrow to get better for our kids.
Great. And that really connects with this next question, looking at those alternative measures. So, what measures have you used that are outside of test scores, if needed, to measure student achievement? And then, why do you use these alternative measures?
Yeah, so character is vital, social emotional learning. And COVID has brought that under spotlight. It was certainly ramping up prior, but now definitely is at the forefront and will need to continue to be that way. And so we have measures that we can tell how the culture and climate on our schools and what our kids need. But some of the other things, Dr. Allen, I'll mention is, when students graduate, what are they going to be doing? And making sure that we PR that. I like to ask every student when they walk across the stage, what is your plan? And I want to hear a specific plan. Whether it's attending Florida Southern, University of Florida, Polk State, UCF, whether it is I'm going to run a business, I'm going to open a business, I'm going to be an electrician. I want to know that our students have a plan when they leave us. Some other things that I've looked at in the past is how many of our students are graduating with AA degrees, how many are graduating with college credit, how many are graduating with rigorous coursework, which is advanced placement, international baccalaureate, ACE Cambridge, industry certification, or a combination of both. A friend of mine used to like to call it steak and lobster. Some of our kids like steak, some like lobster, and if you're like me, you like both. And so, you can have both, and we offer that in our school system. The number of students that are being admitted to the top institutions across the nation, I think we have to tell our story, our Polk County public school story every day to make sure our community knows the great work of our staff members, and we have to be out front with that and calling that from the rooftops.
Last question from me. High stakes testing of students, you noted this a little bit earlier, praised and vilified. What are your thoughts and why?
So I'll go to third grade retention to start, Dr. Allen. I'm not a fan. And I think the research supports us. I respect parental choice and parental right. And if they feel like their child needs more time, I want to talk to them, though, and make sure that that's the case. I want to make sure everything is laid out and that we're making the right decision for our kids. When kids are retained and they get to high school, sometimes there's some frustration that's been pent up, and they don't know why this occurred. And so I want to just make sure that when parents make that decision, they have everything in play. And so when you talk about high-stakes testing, having it mandatory in third grade, to me, that's wrong because, again, there's so much more to the child than that one test score. At the end of the day, with whatever the accountability system is going to be, we have to put forth our best effort for our kids so that they aren't negatively impacted by an accountability system. And I do think that data is vital for us to help our kids moving forward. But the reason I don't like the high stakes is the impact that it has on children. I mean, next year we're facing concordance scores that are going up to 480 for reading. We're facing a PERT score that will no longer be accepted for math. Our Research Accountability and Grants Department ran a study on our data, and our graduation rate off the start would be down over 10%, just based upon those increases. And I would want to look at that in Polk County, too, to know what we're doing, because if we know that from the beginning, we can take actions and put supports in place to ensure we're not negatively impacted. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Border.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. Next, we will have Mrs. Miller asking questions related to operations management. Mrs. Miller?
Hello, thank you. For smooth operations across divisions, it is important to build a leadership pipeline. Please discuss your approach to ensuring qualified leadership and building qualified leaders in all areas of the organization.
You are 100% right, Mrs. Miller, and I feel like in my career, again, and it's not a feeling, that's occurred. I have Double digit now, I think it's up to 11 former assistant principals that are serving as principals in our county and in other counties. My most recent 3 executive area directors, who were my direct reports, one of them is now serving in my role in Volusia County. One is now a geographic area superintendent in Orange County, and the other one, Dr. Timothy Smith, was appointed as the first appointed superintendent in Escambia County Public Schools. And so I think it comes back to that culture again, and what we do with the psychological safety. And then, you know, within that, there is specific strategy with what we're working with on our with our leaders. When it comes to schools, we have to know standards-based instruction. We have to know what task aligned to standards looks like. We have to know what engagement of students looks like, and then how we support to do that. We have to ask our teachers what they need right now, because in the COVID environment, many professionals are questioning their efficacy and their value, and the needs have changed trying to teach in this format. So when it comes to operations, the same thing. We have to build that pipeline within each department, so that when we have a vacancy, we have a decision to make as to whether we want to go out and look, or do we really want to look at multiple qualified candidates within our district that represent the demographics of our district that are ready to step into the role. And leadership pipeline has been a focus for us in Orange County. I can tell you 5 years ago, when I had high school principal interviews, I was concerned because I had a couple qualified candidates. I just conducted 3. We have 3 next year. And speaking to this, one is being promoted to the Chief Operations Officer in Volusia County Public Schools. One is retiring, and the other one is being promoted to cabinet level in our district. And so I just had those interviews last week, Thursday and Friday, with the communities. And our pipeline is now bursting. Out of the candidates I interviewed, I could take any and all of them to the superintendent for the final interview. And that's a nice place to be, and that's where I want to be. But that, again, starts with visibility, the hands-on partnership and collaboration. Our executives are knowledgeable and fantastic at what they do, and so making sure that we take the time to build the others in the department, and we continue to give them opportunities to learn and grow. We should always be preparing individuals for our roles. In our schools, we should be preparing the next assistant principals. The principals should be preparing the next principals. And that continues throughout the pipeline. And that way it doesn't get clogged and it doesn't get empty.
Thank you so much, Dr. Border. The next question is, besides salary increases, what rewards can you offer employees that would help them feel respected, valued, and needed?
Great question. Working conditions. And I've talked about that today. It's important that every person on a school campus has a sense of belonging. Our students and our staff have to have a sense of belonging. Again, coming back to our purpose and mission, I'm confident that all of our staff members in Polk County Public Schools believe students are first and that they want high quality instruction. So coming back to that common purpose, but right now, and always this was the case, but now even more so, we have to ask what you need as we're navigating through this pandemic, because the needs have changed. 86%, on a survey, 86% of educators said morale was decreasing before COVID. And so we need to inquire what the needs are. It's changed. I mentioned they're questioning their value, they're questioning their efficacy, they're questioning whether their principal still cares about them because their time's been pulled in so many different ways. And so continuing to lead with compassion and grace, which means also the same thing for our students and making sure they get access to what they need. But that needs to be prominent, and working conditions are a way to do that. Maybe they, more time for planning right now. Maybe they need resources. One of the things we did in Orange County Public Schools is developed curriculum resource materials, which, and I want to be clear on this before I go down this rabbit hole that I shouldn't go down. Teachers should have earned autonomy. And when they're creating lessons that are aligned to the standard, that's all we want for our kids. But we have new teachers that need assistance and need support. And so we created curriculum resource materials which are aligned to the standards. Essentially, it's a daily lesson plan. And it's not required of anybody, but the number of teachers who are using them, and then the back and forth dialogue with the district and the teacher that has continued to improve them through their years, it's been an incredible resource. And so depending on what our teachers say, if there's resources we can provide them that prevents them from having hours of planning or hours of grading, that's something else we may get into later. The pandemic creates opportunities for us right now too. Mastery learning is another topic that we could get into. And sometimes I see teachers spending time grading assignments that could be handled in a different manner, but they don't know that. And so giving them opportunities to take those risks, I think, is important because it improves their conditions.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the ideal communication process between the superintendent's office and employees at school sites and departments throughout the district?
So with the executive team, weekly cabinet meetings, direct reports. I would expect the executive team to be doing the same with their department heads. So in operations, they would be meeting with the head of transportation, the head of food service, the head of procurement on a weekly basis. For me as superintendent, again, I want to be visible in schools. Of course, I know as the executive for the school district, a lot of my time I know will be spent engaging with the community, which I'm going to love. But any moment that's available in my schedule, I want to be in a school because the staff and students need to see me. But I think there's other ways to communicate too, and it needs to be done. I want to put out regular videos to staff on what's going on in the district. I want to put out a similar message that's a community update that goes to all of our stakeholders. That's an update in the district. And the frequency of that, of course, could be determined on need and based upon what we hear from the community early on. Monthly might be a starting point. And so communication must be nonstop. There's no such thing as over-communicating.
Thank you, I appreciate that. What is your experience in leading a facilities renovation and building program in a fast-growing district?
So we're extremely fast-growing in Orange County. We're going to be building 22 schools in the next 10 years. I noticed too thank you to the community for the great support in Polk County. The Polk Promise and the half-cent penny sales tax is so vital for us to provide our schools, our kids, the environment that they need to come into, because if we're thinking Maslow psychology, you need a safe and clean learning and work environment to start. But we, our facilities, it's about $2.6 billion, 2,000 more jobs created as a result of it. And we visit that capital improvement plan every year. For instance, and it's 10 years, but it's revisited every year, and that process is a 12-month process, culminating in right now where we just decided we need 4 middle schools instead of 5, and we need 13 elementary schools instead of 12 because growth changes. And I know in Southwest Lakeland, Southeast Winter Haven, you guys are having growth. I know you're looking at some schools too in Davenport and Mulberry. And so continuing to revisit that, making sure we're paying attention to growth. I mean, when it's a community design school, that's great, but sometimes that doesn't happen as well. And really getting into it, Ms. Miller, and looking to, what's our strategy with land banking? Is it a good strategy for us or not a good strategy in Polk County? And then within the facilities department I mentioned earlier, we went to bulk purchasing from contractor purchasing, and we're able over the last 10 years to save enough money to build another elementary school. And we have the half-penny sales tax as well in Orange County Public Schools, and making sure the community sees how we're spending that money transparently, that we have a list of projects and how that's come up with, driven by equity, which can sometimes be a tough conversation, but equity, for me, I'm going to keep a spotlight on equity and make sure that that's one of the leading factors.
Thank you. And Dr. Border, your last question from my district is, describe your ability to cultivate a disciplined, safe, and orderly school environment.
So, as I just mentioned, Maslow, that's vital. Students can't learn if school is disruptive. And, I want to be clear on the start. There are certain behaviors that are not acceptable. When I got to Freedom High School if I'm being honest. There was a lot of discipline issues, and so I had to set expectations for kids. I started with 2 simple ones. You will not throw a fist on this campus, and you will not curse at an adult. If an adult treats you wrong, say thank you and come let me know. And that worked. The kids met the expectations. The number of disruptions went down dramatically. That has to happen simultaneously sometimes while you're building culture. If you're not having disruptions, then you can really just focus on culture. And when I talk about culture, again, sense of belonging. Our kids have to be connected at their schools. They have to have an identity in their schools. Relationships with teachers is the starting point for that. If they love a teacher in their school or another adult on their campus, they have an identity. Clubs, music, art, sports. We have so many things at our disposal to connect our kids, and we have to make sure every kid is connected. That's the starting point. From there, high expectations, and be clear about the expectations so that the kids and adults know what the expectations are. And I find that the majority rise to meet them. Restorative justice has worked really well for us in Orange County Public Schools. And so when kids make mistakes, it's about learning from the mistake. And if we can get students together with adults to talk about what happened and what to do next time, because some of our kids may be taking an action that they don't know what else to do. It's not that they don't know it's wrong. They don't know how else to respond. And so restorative justice helps to do that. And in addition to that, culturally responsive instruction. Have we looked at our curriculum and made sure that it represents the demographics in our schools and that it's responsive to what they need? I'll just share a short story if I can. Walking around that high school campus, visited all the classrooms. I was big on visiting classrooms, not for evaluation, just visiting so I can feel what's happening on campus, so I can say hi to all my teachers. When you're on a campus, it's like you're on a city. You have 200 teachers, and so just being visible and making sure kids are meeting expectations too. They're sitting up in class, they're paying attention, they're talking to their teacher, they're writing and reflecting. It's important for kids to hear the expectations too, so that we hold them accountable. But I ran into this young man 3 times in the same day. I'm not going to mention his name because it's public, but he was disengaged. He was sitting in the back of the room. He wasn't doing anything disruptive. He was just sitting there. And so I got his name in the last class from the teacher. I went back to my office, and I looked him up. This kid was, again, looking on paper right now without knowing him, but on paper, he was a double 5 in elementary school all the way through. He was in gifted. And then it started to fall off in 7th and 8th grade, and now here he is in high school, a level 1 and a level 2. Level 1 reading, level 2 math. So I called him in. I will mention his first name, Andrew. And I said, so what's going on? You're graduating in a few months, but I can't even get you across the stage. You got a 1.7 GPA. What do you want to do? He says, well, I'm going to be an electrician. I'll just, when I finish, my parents aren't going to let me drop out now. I'll get my GED, and then I'm going to be an electrician. I said, are you aware of Orange Technical College? No, I don't know what you're talking about, Dr. Porter. So pathways for our kids have to start from the onset. We have to push pathways down to middle school as well, but in high school, we have to have a plan for every student coming in 9th grade. I was able to work with our technical center director, and even though technically he wasn't eligible, we got him in right away, 2nd semester. He wasn't able to finish his electrical certification, but I've never seen a student come back from the technical center or go to the technical center without a smile on their face, with just the differentiated and personalized learning that takes place. So that's just an example of that culture and discipline. And when we have every kid connected to something at school and we have high quality instruction in every classroom, discipline will not be taking up much of our time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Miller. Next, we will have Mrs. Fortney, who will be asking questions related to instructional leadership. Ms. Fortney?
Thank you. I apologize. I forgot my cheater glasses, so I'm not quite sure what's going to come out here. What are the most important current issues facing school-level administrators? What is the district's role in addressing these issues? And how did you influence school culture as a principal or district level administrator? And I can repeat those because it was pretty long.
Thanks, Ms. Fortney. So COVID right now is first and forefront. It's changed the role of what we have to do. Social emotional learning has to be first and foremost, and that's been a change for our administrators and teachers. And so in some regards, it's getting back to basics with some of them and just really getting them back to the heart of getting to know every student and make sure kids and staff are connected, because teachers are going through this pandemic right now too. Administrators are going through this pandemic. And so making sure they know it's okay to have questions right now, to have doubt right now, to wonder, how can I monitor students better in a blended environment, to embrace those conversations and work together. One of the beauties of having all the high schools is, as a geographic superintendent, I used to have 4 or 5. And when you're in collaborations and meetings, but 20 of your schools are elementary, rightfully so, the conversation becomes elementary centric. By having all the high schools together, we've been able to share the practices and work together to collaborate. One of the things I noticed early on this year, Ms. Fortney, was that doubt in my principals' minds, and I have amazing principals. I would want my kids to attend all of their schools, in all of their classrooms. And I started having weekly check-in meetings. And we started the meeting with a feeling check. And of course, I got some strange looks at first, because we're talking high school principals. But they really started to embrace it. And we would just spend 15, 20 minutes talking about our feelings and how's everybody doing. Because we have to keep our leadership inspired and having a positive outlook, because they set the tone and culture for the whole campus. And so that's just an example of that. And I know the last part of that was talking about the impact on culture. And so the way I've done that is, again, to be visible in schools. I expect my executive area directors to be in schools 4 days a week. If it's not a cabinet meeting and it's not another required meeting, which is at least half of my time a week, I'm in schools, because I need to be with my principals, working alongside them, talking about how they're doing and what they need, brainstorming, collaborating, now more than ever. And really what we've learned through this pandemic is it probably should have never waned, and we should have kept that going at the forefront and strength anyway, but it's brought it back to the surface, and I think that it's something that we're going to keep at the forefront moving forward.
Thank you so much. Next question, sir. Detail what you have done in the past and what you would do to facilitate reading proficiency among students with learning disabilities, ELL, and economically disadvantaged students.
Thank you for that question. We need all of our students reading on grade level. It's the key to success. And so I want to start with pre-kindergarten. I know that you have about 1,500 students in pre-kindergarten, 800 of which are VPK, 700 other. You have 3 schools on your high school campuses, which I love, by the way. And FYI, we're expanding next year in Orange from 6 to 10, and the following year more, and we're aiming for one of those programs at all 22 campuses and making it a priority. It's a nice perk for our teachers as well, but it also is helping kids get to reading proficiency. We need to be monitoring. I noticed your organizational chart. You have a nice set of staff members working with pre-kindergarten, and so that's fantastic. You've committed to it. And so we need to monitor our results and how we're doing. We need our kids coming into kindergarten reading. We need to work with our other pre-K centers that are not affiliated with the school district to see what they need and how we can partner. I think of one of my high schools, Evans High School, and if you drive down Pine Hills Road, you're going to drive by 50 early childhood centers. And so I'm sure that they want to collaborate with us and they need our assistance. And so reaching out and setting that platform and working with our early learning coalition to do so. And then in each grade level, Ms. Fortney, again, it's access to high quality instruction in every classroom every day. And our neediest kids need our best teachers. And we need to be able to reward our teachers too for doing that work. Sometimes those are tough choices, but we've got to get our neediest kids with our neediest students. You know, we were recognized, I don't say when, and I took this from my superintendent, Dr. Jenkins, who, I didn't mention her at the beginning, but I thank her so much. She's an amazing superintendent, and I just love working for her. And, you know, she pushes us continually, which is the environment I like to learn in and work in. And we were recognized, I'm not going to say won, the Broad Prize in 2014, which is for closing achievement gaps in large urban school districts. And the reason I say that is because what we say as a family is it was more an indictment on public education. Because our gaps, while ours are more narrow than other urban school districts, it's unacceptable. Because we know that all students can and will learn. Our gaps for our ESE students, our ELL students, our African American students, our Hispanic students have to be closed. A lot of this comes back to, you know, what type of instruction are they receiving every day? How far were they behind when they came into school? And so that's why I spend time talking about pre-K and the importance. We reach out when any child is born in Orange County, they get a welcome package from Orange County Public Schools that includes resources, books, and you know, and I know our foundation, which ranked 21st in the nation here in Polk County, which is just fantastic, and I know they have the Polk Reads, and so many other great programs, almost $50 million raised. You know, would love to learn what we're doing too in Polk County with that, and engaging our families for the onset. So then, Ms. Fortney, beyond the high-quality instruction, which let me talk about that a little bit. You have to have expectations in a school, then high-quality instruction, which essentially for me means standards-based instruction, pedagogy is solid, and then there's deep content knowledge that the teacher has. And if there's a PD question later, I will tell you, we need to ask our teachers what they need, which they might want deep content knowledge so that they're able to provide more for their kids. As PD has to be differentiated and not canned. And then when a student has access to high quality instruction, then and only then do we know if we need to intervene. If we need to provide tier 2 in the classroom, small group, one-on-one, or whether we need to move to tier 3 more intensive and maybe pull a student out or offer remedial courses and talk about things like double blocking, which to me, while it can be helpful and it's needed, to me is a last resort, because if the tier 1 instruction's not there, we may be jumping ahead to something that's not needed. I've seen students close 3 years of learning when they have amazing teachers doing work. And so making sure our teachers have that support to do it, because we know, and listen, coming off of COVID, we're going to have our greatest challenge yet with learning loss, or what I like to call too, unfinished learning. And so we're going to have to it really provides an opportunity for us to revisit this topic with our teachers, with our union at the table, with our teachers at the table, and talk about how we want to go about this, because there's a lot of different strategies being talked about right now. But with that $300 million plus or minus coming to Polk County, it's going to be in the spotlight, and we're going to be held accountable for what we utilize that money for and how successful we are.
Great answer. This one I think you've already touched on. So specifically, what role have you played in turning around underperforming schools? Give examples with data. And this should be short and sweet, I think, because I've already heard you.
All right, yes, ma'am. So, you know, Hunters Creek Middle School was not turned around. It was a high-performing school. I was coming in after a principal that had been there a long, long time, so that was a great experience as well. But we were an A school with large gaps, and so we went after the gaps, and that's why we got the 100% adequate yearly progress, because our ELL and ESE students were being underserved, and that was the great work of the team there, which has been sustained. Not called adequate yearly progress anymore, but with ESSA, they did really well. Again, tapped to go to the high school by then Superintendent Blocker, and we went from a D school under state intervention to a couple points away from an A the first year, and A the second year, and Freedom High School remains a beacon flagship for the district long after my departure, which again is that capacity building work, which is so vital. School Transformation Office, I mentioned Rock Lake and Lovell Elementary Schools. The way we came up with the schools that year, there was 19 of them, and it was if they had had multiple Ds or an F in the last 3 years. And so those two schools, working with their principals and their teachers, assisting them in common planning and assisting them with professional development, supporting their principal to help the teachers. And both of those schools moved 2 letter grades that year. But more importantly, the kids were just getting a better education, which is what it was all about. In the Southwest Learning Community, again, great success. Overall there, we had high-performing schools. And then in the high school office, you know, and I think my superintendent, I know my superintendent would tell you this as well, we're an A district in Orange County Public Schools due to the work of our high schools and our principals and our teachers. That's what led us to the A rating. Again, I don't like to emphasize the rating. We're more than a letter grade. That's part of the accountability system that I don't agree with. But it matters to our public, some of them. And so if we have it in our bag, we might as well use it. And so I really do think K-12 is important. Every grade level is important. But if we go after one thing, if you want to go after low apples on a tree first, and working in an orchard and picking apples, that was always fun. But then you had to start moving the ladder around and get all the ones off top, which took longer and was harder work. But the lower apples are graduation rate and career readiness. And we're, across the state of Florida, you know, graduation rate, we're knocking it out of the park. Again, rising concordance scores next year are going to change that drastically. But career readiness, while there's great things happening, there's so much more for us to do because every student should be graduating, in my opinion, with an industry certification. Whether they're taking 7 advanced placement classes or they already know what they want to do when they graduate, there's just so much our technical centers have to offer. That was one of the first things I did in OCPS in my role was visit our 5 technical centers, and I would look forward to and can't wait to visit the 2 in Lakeland, Auburndale, and Winter Haven, because what the teachers do there, differentiating, personalizing, and individualizing instruction and how happy the kids are is phenomenal. We need to make sure our kids understand what's available to them and make sure it's marketed.
Wow, thanks. I want to follow up on that. The transformation office that you just discussed, I jotted that down. After those common planning and your interventions on your Ds or an F school, how long did that support last after? Because I've seen we change it and then we let it slide back again and then have to go back in. Explain that, please.
Yeah, great question. And, you know, and that's, it has to be sustainable before a school goes back, say, to the learning community. The way we do it in Orange County is you come in to the school transformation office for an undefined amount of time. And the goal is to build capacity so that when the school moves back to the learning community where, again, we need to be in schools more often. That's why I have my executive area directors in schools 4 days a week. So our high schools, we're with our principals all the time. But when you're in a learning community with 40 schools, elementary and middle, there are some schools that you might only get a monthly visit. And so, to your point, Ms. Fortney, if it's not sustainable when you go back, then it just goes back down. And that's that seesaw effect, which drives me crazy. You know, you go up 1 year, but right back down the next year. And it's not really a true indication of what's happening because, you know, coming back to an earlier question, you know, you could take some actions that get you a grade, but it's not really helping kids. And that drives me crazy as a leader and not something that I'm about. I'm about sustainability and work that's going to carry on. So along that, Ms. Fortney, there's additional support in the school transformation office. They have a much larger team that can help teachers in common planning so that when they walk away, their teacher leaders can drive the common planning. The teachers can help each other. The coaches on the campus are now trained to be able to support the teachers to do so. The administrators get a stronger backing in standards-based instruction. One of the things I tell all the assistant principals in high school every year, principals as well, but I love to tell my assistant principals this because my principals already have it, is if we hired you, you're part of our family. And that's the same thing I did as a principal. When we hire you as part of this team, you're part of the family. We have family discussions because we all want to get better, but we're a family. And so if you're an assistant principal and you don't know math standards, but you're over the math department, great. We want to get you the support because we have the support to do so. If you pretend you know it and then you can't support the teachers, that's when it doesn't work. And so that family atmosphere, that psychological safety, that's crucial.
Awesome. What types of programs have you found to be the most effective in improving student learning? What makes them effective? How do you evaluate that effectiveness? And then how do you communicate effectiveness to your stakeholders?
Yeah, so this is crucial right now, that $300 million, give or take. I think it's about 280. We'll see what the state's going to do. They haven't, made their final decisions yet, but it looks like, some significant funding coming our way in Polk County. And so planning for what we're going to do with that ties right into what you're talking about, Ms. Fortney. So it has to align to the strategic plan. I'm not a believer in programs, too. Let me state that up front. Nothing replaces a teacher. The teacher has the largest impact on student achievement, bar none. Second to that is the school leader, but it's not close. The teacher has the greatest impact on kids. The leader still has significant, but the teacher by far. And so I choose teacher over program. And when we look at budget and money, we have to look at all of our programs. Are they aligned to what we want to accomplish? Are they supported? Do we have the training in place to use them properly? We found that we had intervention materials and programs all over the map at elementary, middle, and high, and we had to bring that in and have a little tighter coupling around it, still with a nice menu for our principals to pick from, but the menu now, Ms. Fortney, was vetted. It was programs with efficacy, programs that had longitudinal results, not these seesaw results that I mentioned earlier, where you could bring a program in for a year, get a quick bump, but then it goes right down and it's not sustained. So when you talk about a program, how's it going to help us reach our long-term and short-term goals? How's it aligned to our strategic plan? What's the efficacy? So is it vetted? How are we going to implement it? How are we going to measure it? And how are we going to sustain it? And when we measure it, this is the transparency I'm talking about with you as a board and to our public. When we spend taxpayer monies, sharing out what happened and what we're going to do moving forward, the successes, what we learned, what we're doing now, why we're doing it.
Thank you. Last one if I have time. What have you done to address the diverse needs of student populations in your district? Please address the subgroups that you have already mentioned, ELL, ESE, et cetera.
So let me hone in here because I've covered that in several other questions. So let me hone on something specific that I haven't covered. Freedom High School is an image of Orange County Public Schools. So when I speak to what I'm about to speak to right now, that's what we're doing across all high schools now. We've replicated practices. But Freedom High School is an ESE center school. And I used to love to start my day greeting the kids off the bus, walking the IND, PMH, TMH, ASD units, because those kids just brought joy to my face, and they transform the culture of the school whenever they're included and the other kids are interacting with them on a daily basis. It just brings joy to me as I think about it. So with exceptional student education, one of the things that we're realizing is there's no set model, there's no silver bullet. So we really have to look at our data, which includes in the classroom each and every day, And so let me give you some examples. The silver bullet isn't necessarily co-teaching. It's not necessarily support facilitation. It's not necessarily learning strategies. But what works at your school with your staff, with their capacity, and with your kids and your parents? That might look different on every school, but you can have exemplar learning strategies. You can have exemplar co-teaching. You can have exemplar support facilitation. One of the frustrations that principals had with support facilitation is they've got multiple support facilitators, but they're not getting the results. So some changes that are starting to move that needle is instead of assigning a support facilitator to kids now, they're assigning a support facilitator to content. So now that support facilitator sits in with the math teachers. They have more kids, but it's focused on math. So the kid might have a support facilitator now for math and English language arts versus one support facilitator, but the support facilitators are deeper into the content. And ELL is another one I'll touch on. We had the largest ELL population at Freedom High School. There's no model that's necessarily the fix. One-way developmental, two-way developmental. I don't want to say this out loud, but a lot of my parents wanted immersion. And I had to, talk to my compliance teacher because they wanted immersed immediately. And we had to make sure, of course, we're following meta-consent decree. And so, again, that comes back to parent, student, and what our staff's capacity is and what's working for us. Of course, being driven by the data, which includes being in and out of our classrooms every day, because we've got to move the needle on these gaps. We know all students can and will learn, and so we can't make excuses for our gaps.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. And next, we will have Mr. Wilson asking questions related to business services. Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Mr. Border. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about budget, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Good morning. And I'm sorry, I feel like I've been ignoring you. I've come around to Dr. Allen, and so I'm glad I'm getting to answer your questions now. Thank you.
Not at all. Share with us your plans for the district's budget development process, and what level of involvement will principals, directors, and other administrators have in that process?
So transparency is where I want to start with that, Mr. Wilson. We have to have everybody at the table, the union leadership, the principals, they all have to be at the table. I would want our parents at the table, our parent advisory groups as well, our involved business and industry leaders as well. Again, our budget is a numerical representation of our vision, or it's not. And if it's not, that's where we have to start. So is what we're spending our money on, because we only get to spend every dollar once, aligned to the strategic plan? So that's where it begins. But the directors, cabinet, all at the table. The budget process is year-long. We have to be planning. Right now, there's so much in flux, and we have to be planning for these $300 million so that we can hit the ground running. And it's not about rushing, because if we rush, we won't be effective. But it's about planning with backup plans so that we're able to start providing services for our kids and utilizing our money. And I'm sure you'll get into it later, but we need more money, and that's part of that legislative platform too. But I'll see what your other questions are before I dive into that.
Well, thank you for that. But I have a follow-up question. You mentioned involving a lot of folks. From a practical perspective, how do you bring all those folks to the table? How do you bring the parents to the table and involve them in the budget development process?
Yeah, so if the superintendent has a parent advisory council, I think it's important to share transparently, what we're looking at financially and what the parents think we need, starting with our strategic plan as well. What I found on that is there's almost always like 95% alignment. So really what you gain from the transparency is just more support. And when I say everybody, when you're talking about executives, they represent all their departments. So the chief operations officer, with this CARES Act money right now, we've provided guardrails, and all of our principals right now are meeting with all of their staff members so that everyone has a voice. And then the principals will meet with the area superintendents. and then, you know, the executive cabinet meets. So there's a way to start the process to include every voice. You're right, at some tables, there's only so many seats, but it's important to start the process early so that everyone has a voice as we further those conversations.
Thank you. My next question is, what role do you see for the board in the development of the budget, and how will that process be facilitated?
Again, it's our strategic plan, so that's where it starts. And that's why I want to know what's working for you with the strategic plan. Where do you think we can make some adjustments in the strategic plan? Is it just adjustments we need to make? Or, you know, when the 5-year strategic plan ends, do we need to go back out and go through that whole process, which, you know, that's a whole process in itself that would involve everybody in our community. And so that's where that would start. And can you repeat that question one more time?
Well, the question had to do with how do you involve the board in the budget development process?
Yeah, so, you know, we're going to have our one-on-one meetings. I'm going to want to know what's important to you. Of course, at our board meetings here in the public, it'll be clear what's important. And again, the strategic plan aligned or adjusted to your needs is what's going to be the driving force. And again, I feel already from watching board meetings that everyone here is kids first, and kids getting access to high quality instruction each and every day. And so then that's the conversation on how we pivot, adjust, and become flexible to spend the money, because we may need to spend things differently right now as we continue navigating out of this pandemic to ensure we safely reopen schools, which we've already done, but for all students. I think a lot of students came back for FSA rights and they saw how well that's done, and so that's helped with confidence. We're going to have to handle learning loss. We're going to have to handle social emotional learning. Some mistakes districts have made in the past in 2008 when we got the recovery funds is they weren't prepared for the funding cliff. And then they had all kinds of cuts they had to make, which were HR cuts. And so having the transparency with the money, how long it's going to last, specifically what it's going to be used for, how it's going to be implemented and monitored, that's all part of the upfront loading and talking to you as a board. And making sure I keep you informed of what the repercussions are. We just sent out an email last night to our board that right now, from what we can tell, again, this is probably the trickiest year ever, but we're projected to go from 209,000 plus students to 204,000 plus students. So and budgets right now, principals are doing them. So we sent that email to the board with transparency so that they understand the personnel impacts that's going to have. Now, with turnover and retirements, we think everything will be absorbed. But we did that with transparency, and so that's just an example of what I would want to do with each one of you when it comes to budget and finances. Every dollar that we're using it the way we agree to use it, and you're also updated on the outcomes.
Okay, thank you. So this is what I heard. I heard you say you're going to tie the budget to the strategic plan, and I applaud you for that. I think that's the most appropriate way to do it, so thank you for that. How would you ensure that schools located in under-resourced areas receive the attention and the resources they need?
Yeah, so this is, again, I'm going to have a spotlight on equity. And, you know, I think I would need to assess where we're at as a county and a district. Because for me to sleep at night, that's really what needs to be done. But when I say assess where we're at as a county and a district, just to make sure everyone's informed. You know, there's this Dunning-Kruger model for economics, which, you know, what you know compared to what you perceive, you start with this peak of ignorance, right? And I've had that on many topics at different times. But when you're educated, then you hit what's called the valley of humility. And then from there, we just get stronger and we all work together. And so that might be some way of having an equity discussion or having an equity forum across our district, because the reality is that some of our students have been underserved. Economically is one example for that of many, many years. And to help them get to proficiency, we may need and do need to provide additional resources. Again, it comes back to something that was asked earlier too. Sometimes right now, Title I budgets, we review our Title I budgets with our high schools monthly, because getting the money is one thing, but making sure it's being effectively used for the outcome is another. And that'll be crucial more than ever right now with the money coming in too. So I do agree that the funding needs to look differently for underserved. And I also agree that we need to monitor our expectations and make sure we're getting the outcomes we need, because again, each dollar can only be spent one time.
Thank you. And my last question is, what is your vision for financial reporting, transparency, and I think you probably addressed this, and maintaining the public trust of the financial affairs of our county?
So forward-facing, everything out front, everything shared with what we're spending on, union leadership at the table. I want all of our staff to know those updates I mentioned earlier from the superintendent to the staff, to the community, that would be covered as well. But you know, we need to advocate assertively for more funding. I mean, this district, I believe, was getting $6,900 plus per student in 2007-8. Now we're getting $7,300 plus. That doesn't even keep, inflation would be $10,300. That's $237 million that we're not getting. So as our teachers are working harder than ever each and every day, we got to make sure we continue to be assertive, and that means telling that story. Not in a confrontational way, because we need our elected officials in Tallahassee to support us, but in a conversation that matters way, like here's the reality, and here's what our teachers are doing. And if kids are first for you like they are for us, then we've got to do better for our kids.
Thank you, Dr. Border.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Next, we will have Ms. Reynolds asking questions related to personal leadership. Ms. Reynolds?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So the first question's a little bit long, so if you need me to repeat any part of it, let me know. Excuse me. A superintendent handles a variety of responsibilities. Of them, which do you feel most qualified to handle and why? And for which of the responsibilities of a superintendent will you need additional support, and how do you plan to approach that area?
So I feel very strong on communication, vision, and leading this district as your chief executive officer. I feel very strong in the teaching and learning side of the house. On the operations side of the house, I feel educated, but I feel like there's more I need to learn and know. Certainly, you know, I haven't been into the weeds of transportation or food service. I know enough to have conversations and have accountable conversations, but I would be relying on experts as well, and where we need to go with that. Key performance indicators, KPIs, are crucial, and there are KPIs out there nationally for all aspects of operations, and so I think that's a starting point. And then, you know, I mentioned earlier, making sure there's cross-functional collaboration between all the departments and teaching and learning. But, you know, the operations side, the finance side, the facility side, you know, I've touched all of them, but certainly I will be relying on resident experts to help me.
Awesome, thank you. The next question, what is the most important part of a superintendent's job and why?
So I'm, you know, along with you, we're the face of Polk County Public Schools. So, you know, to me, the most important part of the job is going to be singing our praises from the mountaintops each and every day and telling our story. And that falls under communication as well. So I'll just answer that right there and leave it at that, that's first and foremost for me is going to be singing the great work that is happening because of our support staff and our teachers and our administrators and the support of our business and industry leaders and families every day.
Awesome, thank you. What is the ideal relationship between law enforcement agencies and the school district in ensuring safe schools?
So safety and security is vital. We all know that. You know, what we see happening in schools and around the country and other places is something none of us ever want to hit close to home. And so it's vital that we have a strong relationship with our law enforcement partners. You know, I've watched your meetings. You know, I know Sheriff Judd and the great work that his team does here and with the various jurisdictions. And so being a partner with him immediately will be vital. You know, I've worked across multiple jurisdictions in Orange County right now, Apopka PD, Ocoee PD, Winter Park PD. I shouldn't have gone down there because now I'm going to leave some out, but there's 8 or 9, as well as Orange County Sheriff's Office and Orlando Police Department. And they are all tremendous partners to us, and we work in tandem and collaboration. Some of the work we would need to look at is having national standards for security for our schools, making sure our safety procedures are written and practiced. And sometimes that can be difficult because we're not going to ever traumatize a student, but we have to make them as real as we can without traumatizing people. And so we have to make sure the drills are taken seriously and that they're practiced. Tabletop discussions are a great way to go about it, so you're not traumatizing people. I remember we had a tabletop exercise at one of our schools that threw me for a loop because they said the train had just gone off the tracks. There was a type of chemical that was harmful, and it was floating to the school, and based upon the wind direction, you had 45 minutes. And so it really threw us, me and the principal and his team, into how good is our safety plan and how can it get better, which is what came out of it. But some of the things, too, we've done is single points of entry, security vestibules, digital repeaters, enhancing radios, fencing. And so schools must be safe as a starting point for our learning environments, learning and working environments.
Thank you. And then the last question for me, please share your thinking about organizational culture in school districts of this size and any specifics relating to organizational culture in our county.
So one of the attractors to me, I mean, first and foremost, my experience in an urban school district where we have also rural communities within it. And the rural community I grew up in, you know, that foremost attracts me to Polk County because I feel like it's a continuation of my 24 years in Orange County, and plus getting me even closer back to my growing up in South Central Pennsylvania. But can you repeat that one more time, Ms. Reynolds?
Sorry, and please share your thinking about organizational culture in a school district of this
Yes.
size and any specifics related to our
So
county.
the size of your district is the second thing then that attracted me. I mean, you're 28th largest in the nation, 7th largest in Florida. And so that's what, you know, the work that I'm most pleased with throughout my career has been the culture building. And that's crucial for us. It starts with culture. I said in one of my questions, culture must precede strategy. And really, culture eats strategy for breakfast. If we don't have a safe school, we could have the best pedagogy, the best content-based teaching, and teachers would tell you they're not going to be able to reach the kids because the school's not safe. And so it starts with culture, and so high expectations so that we have a safe and orderly learning working environment. And then the culture for the staff, and again, that comes back to respect, the relationships and the collaboration for every stakeholder on campus. And when we do that, we're going to get to that cultural embedded growth mindset that I was talking about earlier, where then it's just about what can we do each and every day to get better for our kids. And non-evaluative, non-judgmental, we're all in it together, and it's our family. You know, we work together as a family.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Well, take a breath. At this time, I'd like to ask you if you have any additional information that you might like to share with the board. I know we've asked quite a few questions, but you may have had some thoughts that might have come across. And if you do, please feel free to do so, Dr. Borders.
So Chair Cunningham, if I may ask, is this my closing statement or is that separate?
Yes, this would be your closing statement.
Okay, great.
Yes,
So I think I
sure.
would lead into that by just telling you how excited I am to be here again and talking to you about the Polk County Public Schools position, superintendent position. This conversation has been fantastic and makes me even more excited about the potential. you know, I'm ready to be your superintendent. We're gonna, and I want to say this too, I wish I had had my community and school tours before this public interview, because I know that I'm about to see adults changing lives for children, and I would be calling that out with specificity right now, by name, by school, and so I'm so looking forward to the tours across Polk County and can't wait. As your superintendent, I'm ready to hit the ground running day one. You know, at the end of the day, I am superintendent for 58,000 students, 4,000 employees, responsible for $250 million across all aspects. And when there's areas of improvement in the high schools and Orange County Public Schools, that starts and ends with myself. And Dr. Jenkins has given me that autonomy to be able to do that work. As your superintendent, we're going to build a culture of psychological safety. I know I've said that multiple times today, and that's, I don't want to say easier said than done. It's a reality. It just becomes our focus, that we're all a family. And again, it's about support and coaching and supervision, not evaluation. And we respect right now with compassion and grace that our teachers are faced with the most difficult challenges of our generation. And so how can we work together? When you have that psychological safe environment and then we have accountability, that's where adult learning thrives. And that's when this growth mindset becomes culturally embedded. And then it will be about Polk County Public Schools, all of us, accentuating the great work happening. But how do we get better each and every day? How do we close the ELL gap a little more tomorrow? How do we do better for our ESE students? How do we close our subgroups for our socioeconomically underserved students? As your superintendent, I'm going to lead with visibility, systems, and strategic thinking. I will inspire trust by being collaborative and being vulnerable. I will admit when something should have been done differently and what we are going to do about it moving forward. Anything that happens in Polk County Public Schools that anyone in our community is not happy with will be welcome feedback to me, and the accountability will start with me. And we'll talk about what we're going to do moving forward and what we've learned. Graduation's going to be a K through 12 celebration. You know, right now, the first week in May is probably my second favorite activity of the year besides graduation and asking every one of the kids what their plan is. And that is because we brought in a few years ago, and I took this from Freedom High School. All our seniors used to write letters to their teachers every year thanking them for what they did. And what I used to notice was some teachers, those letters are on the wall. They have a whole wall now, and they keep them there, and it's just inspiration and fuel for them. So we expanded that to the whole district. So we call it Project Impact. And I just read 50 letters myself. And so because we're in the pandemic right now, the teachers will get that message from me on the Tuesday of Teacher Appreciation Week, and it's letters from kids. We'll bring one to a board meeting and do it publicly to kick it off. And so along those lines, we have to celebrate graduation for each grade level because that's where it occurred. It's not just a high school ending. You know, when I look in the mirror, I see a dyslexic student in Frostproof that doesn't know why they can't read, but they're frustrated. I see a student in Fort Meade that just moved here that speaks no English, but they know that if they don't get a 480 next year, they're not going to graduate high school, so they're considering whether to just drop out right now. I see a middle school student in Babson Park who's gifted, but just not connecting with our curriculum and wondering what to do about it. That's my inspiration every day as your superintendent, to make sure we're providing the best for our kids every day in every class at every school, and I know we have the team in place to continue doing that work. And when they look back in the mirror, they're going to know that in Polk County Public Schools, they have access to high-quality instruction in an inclusive environment, and now if they work hard, they're going to graduate career and college ready. So I just close by telling you, from Auburndale to Bartow to Davenport, to Haines City, Lakeland, Lake Wales, Mulberry to Winter Haven, all the communities across the beautiful tapestry of Polk County. I'm ready to serve as your superintendent and work alongside you. And I know with this incredible board, our amazing support staff, our incredible teachers, our leadership at our schools, our invested community and business partners, and empowered families, all of our students are going to reach their dreams. And I really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Border. And I wanted to ask, before we finish up, do you have any questions for the board that any of us could answer for you today?
No, ma'am. I think I'll save for our one-on-one conversations, which I'm really looking forward to, and I'm looking forward to the tours. Thank you again for having me.
Awesome. Well, we thank you, Dr. Border, for your talent and your time this morning. I think now we're going to go ahead and recess this meeting until 10:45, at which time our next candidate will be presented to us for the interview. Thank you so much, sir, and we welcome once again you and your lovely wife to Polk County, and I hope you have a very interesting couple of days.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.